Yo, what's up? This is Byron from God Forbid, and you're watching RichardMetalFan, man. Stay tuned for the most insanity that you could possibly ever handle. And if you can't handle it, you better buckle up because it's coming your way.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Richard Metal Fan Interviews. This is episode number 101. In today's guest, we're talking to Byron Davis. Byron Davis is the lead singer for the band God Forbid, a metalcore band based out of New Jersey, been around since the mid-90s. They've had a great run up until 2013 when they broke up, but this year they got back together and started doing some festivals and stuff. And we're going to be talking to him about basically the history of the band, as well as what got him into metal, what he was doing in between the breakup, and of course eventually getting back together. So without further ado, let's go talk to Byron. So what's up, guys? I'm here with Byron Davis from the newly reformed God Forbid. How are you doing today, Byron?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Doing pretty well. It's a good, lovely night here in Georgia, where I'm at. Where are you at? Are you in New Jersey?
I'm in Texas. No,
Oh,
I live in El Paso, Texas.
oh wow! I didn't know you. I didn't know you moved. I thought everybody else was in Jersey.
No, the whole band separated up.
Oh wow!
There's one in Pennsylvania, one in Vegas, one in California.
Oh wow! Wow. So uh, basically, I wanted to do basically kind of like a quick rundown of the God Forbid discography, as well as talking about what your musical journey as an artist from where you started to now. But I'm always curious before we go into that, what were the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to be a vocalist?
I didn't know I wanted to be a vocalist until I did it. And
That was just it.
it was more like, yeah, I mean, the first incarnation, I was able to acquire some studio time from the recording workshop. I'm a graduate from there, and I knew a couple of people that worked there, so they were willing to give us some free time to record a demo in the studio. And at the time, our former singer, he wasn't able to take off or leave from work to go out there, so I basically did the demo. I was the rough track for the demos, but the dudes in the band liked it, so I ended up in that position.
All right,
Short and skinny of it.
all right, all right. So that was one your first band before you started up God Forbid.
No, God Forbid was the only band I've ever done,
All right.
but it had multiple names before. You know, we started out, we had 3 different names before we created the name God Forbid.
All right. And so how did you get to know the guys like Doc and Corey and everybody?
Well, I went to school with Corey. We were in high school together, and then Doc and Dallas we knew through our former singer's cousin, who was friends with them, JL. So it's always God Forbid has started out as family friends and stuff like that, and then just kind of grew over the years into whatever it is now.
All right. And so tell me about that first recording for that
I went to school a week or two.
Right. So tell me about that first recording y'all
Out of
did.
Misery.
Yeah, the EP that I believe that came out in '98, and I first heard it. It just sounds very raw sounding and very heavy too. So where'd you record it at?
Yeah, I mean that was our first time. Well, we recorded at this place called Third Studio from the Sun. I don't know if it exists anymore, but those sessions were crazy. The first time we went there, one of his ADAT machines went down. So we ended up having to postpone and come back, at another date. And then, while we're waiting around, we wrote 1 or 2 other songs, and then Out of Misery, the song that kind of sparked it and set it into motion was Mind Eraser.
Yeah, it's a banger.
When we did that song, we thought we were onto something. Well, thanks, man. That was the beginning of what God Forbid would become.
All right. And then you eventually did your first full-length album, Reject the And I just think one of my favorite songs is, of course, the opening track Amendment. I think it's just a sick opener.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool song, man. You know, I, to be honest, I couldn't even tell you what I was thinking of when I first thought of the idea, but I think it was like a statement that Dallas had said to me, and then I just took he gave me like three lines or whatever, and then from that three lines, I crafted the song Amendment. But
Right.
if that was a different time back then, man. It was music was it was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's
Especially.
really I don't know. Music has always been crazy,
Yeah.
but
Especially because
yeah, it
that
was
album.
different
Yeah, because
that
that
point.
album came out in like 2001. That was like around the peak of like new metal bands like Linkin Park and Mudvayne and stuff were started popping up at
That
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 time.
that well, that album came out in '99.
Oh,
Determination came out in 2001.
oh, for some reason I'm getting like the mixtape
Yeah.
the years mixed up. But then I think you started playing a little bit, but then of course you got eventually got signed to Century Media. How did they find you guys?
When we were recording "Reject the Sickness," Steve Evetts and Alan Dutcher was the guy who mastered the album. They like what they heard, and they're like, "Yo, would you mind if we send this to somebody, a buddy of mine?" They're like, "Yeah, go ahead, whatever." And he, unbeknownst to us, it was not Tim Bohr, and Tom Berkowitz from Central Media. He was A&R at the time, and he's like, "Yo, I think you'll like these dudes," and he sent them the CD of Reject the Sickness, and the dude heard like the first few seconds of him. Was like, "Yo, I want to sign him." So he basically sent us an offer. He called Doc and Dallas on the phone. I was like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Tom B from Central Media. I want to sign you guys." And we thought it was a joke. So we went and to this restaurant. It's called Chauncey's. It's no longer there either anymore, but it was out in Franklin Park. And we sat down and we had a meeting. And we're like, "Yo," they told us um, Central Media wanted to sign us, and we were like, "Yeah, let's go for it." So I mean, it was nothing we did. It was nothing we physically did other than writing the songs and recording the music, but it was other people who like what they heard that shipped it off to the powers that be that make things happen. So that's how it happened. Um, I wish it was a better story than that, but like usually when you're not looking for stuff, that's usually when it happens.
Right.
So the best advice I could usually give people when they would ask me how'd you get signed, it's like don't really try and work to get signed. Just do what you're doing, and just stay focused on the task at hand. And if it happens, it just happens. When you chase it, it doesn't really happen.
Yeah, you gotta have that, no pun intended, determination to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta want it.
Yeah, you can't just wing it, because people can smell that shit like a mile away.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised how much wing it shit is popular nowadays.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy times. So, but then of course you eventually got signed and you put out Determination, because usually with the debut album you have like your entire life to write it. Did you feel like pressure to follow up Reject the Sickness going into Determination?
Oh yeah, because we were on a time clock. Central Media wanted to sign us and they wanted to put out that record, but unfortunately, like most young bands, we had a private investor who helped us fund uh, making that album. And at the end of the day, he wanted more than what Central Media was willing to pay for it. So that album didn't go to Central Media, and he kept it for himself. I think he sold like 3,000 copies in the tri-state area, and then we basically wrote that album. And then like 3 or 4 months later, we're back getting ready to go back in the studio. So we never really got to uh, grow in between albums, so to speak. So it was kind of like it was a rushed feeling, but it wasn't a rushed feeling because we had a lot of material. It's just we were still trying to find our direction and the
Right.
way we wanted to go. And we got called up to the majors, so to speak, and we just went for it. So there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, man.
Right. And
But
and
I mean,
yeah.
it's it's a great album, you know. I think if Central Media had picked it up, I think things might have been differently, maybe in our trajectory. But
Yeah.
since they didn't, it came to be what it was.
All right. And then in between Determination and Gone Forever, you did the Better Days EP. And from what I saw on like the Metal Archives, I heard like the band wasn't happy with like the result of like the final product. I don't know if you can like elaborate about it.
About what, the better days?
Yeah, yeah, because it was on
Well,
that.
actually, the band wasn't happy with me.
Oh damn!
What's that?
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, we had gone through some issues or whatever, and well, I mean, there was personality issues, and like I was still new to the whole thing. We were all new to music, as far as being musicians, and I hadn't found my way yet, so to speak. I was kind of like, I was still green, so we had some issues, like I said, and then we resolved them, and then we just moved forward, and then the creation became Gone Forever. Once we got all the tracks done, and then we sent it out to get it mixed, then we're like, oh yeah, this is it, and it kind of moved forward from there.
Yeah, and this is honestly like my favorite God Forbid album. But I put in there like the top three albums of you guys. I think this is probably like number one.
Well, thank you.
Heck, yo, and what was that whole recording process like making this?
Uh, it was crazy. It was way different. Like it's like we're going back like 20 years, man.
Yeah,
So,
about
all right,
18
let's just.
now.
I'm gonna try and break it down. Yeah, I'm about to break it down to my best memory. Okay, like the first recording, Out of Misery, we were in the studio. I think we were there for 3 days. I had 3 hours to do the vocals. All right, and then we did. No, yeah, I had like 3 hours to do vocals, and then we did Reject the Sickness, and then I had about maybe 3 days to do the vocals for that, and then we did uh, Reject the Sick. No, which album? We were, dude. My bad. Like I'm tired from work, and I just finished eating. I was trying to rush to care. I
It's all
felt bad.
good,
I
man.
messed up your time,
No, no, you're good,
but
man. We're just talking about
I
Gone
mean,
Forever.
but the whole process, yeah. Well, the whole process has been ongoing. So like we kind of knew what we wanted. It was just weird when that album came out because once we had done Determination, we were just out touring and touring and touring. And by the time we came home, then everyone else that was out with us, things started to change. Like when we came home, that's when Lamb of God, Kill Switch, and Shadows Fall started blowing up. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
before that, like it was still a heavily dominated new metal scene. And then, we were touring, and then out of nowhere, like the new age of American heavy metal just popped up out of nowhere. So,
yeah,
we went home, we started writing. We ran into some issues or whatever that we finally ended up resolving, and then we put out that record. And then, like by the time that record came out, a lot of things had changed, but we had gotten an opportunity to do Ozfest because this is now at this point, this is right when the focus of Ozfest changed. Like the year prior, you had like Chimera, Cradle of Filth, Shadows Fall, Kill Switch on the Ozfest. And then at that point in time, it changed because prior to that, the Ozfest was more new metal bands, and then you had your I don't want to call them glory acts, but you had like Rob Halford and Sabbath, Crazy Town,
yeah,
all those bands. But I want to really give a shout out to Jack Osborne for actually starting it by putting Meshuggah on the Ozfest. That's what really changed everything
yeah,
to the extreme of, you know what I mean, like real music as opposed to, not that new metal is not real music, but you know what I'm saying, like the
yeah.
more aggressive sound. So that right there was the gateway. which started to have people paying attention to what these newer bands were doing, which we were a part of.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. And I
it was a
remember,
good thing. It was awesome.
yeah, and I remember like during the like I believe like you took Trivium out on like one of their I think that was like their first tour when this album was released, right? All right, what was that like?
Yeah, we took them out. We took them out on their first U.S. tour. It was awesome, man. Those dudes, like, to actually see where they are now and watch Matt like grow into his own. Like, he was always determined and like focused. So to see where he is at now and the amount of integrity that he still holds as a person, it's awesome. Like every time I see him, like he's like he treats me like family, and like we're always very. He's just awesome, dude. Like I can't even. I consider him a real friend,
Yeah, and then
and all the dudes in Trivium are awesome.
yeah. It's crazy now they're like freaking mega popular, or it's crazy how far they've come.
Yeah, there is, but I mean, you can see that coming because that it's what they really want. So they're working at it. You know what I mean? And they're constantly getting better and better. I learned a few things from just talking to Matt. Ideas and directions to try and take things. So like, my hat's off to him, man, for making his dreams a reality and at the level that they're at. It's awesome.
All right. And then going forward to For Constitution of Treason, I also love this album. But I think it was like a quick turnaround after Gone Forever. Did you start writing for Constitution of Treason right after Gone Forever was released?
Um, well, we did Gone Forever, and then we did a Europe American tour, and then we did the Ozfest that summer. Then after Ozfest, we went to Japan with Chimera and In Flames. And then after that, we ended up going to Europe with Machine Head for 10 weeks. And then while we were in Europe with Machine Head, we are actually in Serbia when we got the call about Dimebag.
Oh wow.
One of the guys that was teching for us, his girl worked at Alarosa. And she had called him and told him what happened. And so we found out about it while we were over there. And it kind of bummed us out because we had played Alarosa a few times, prior to that. So we knew how the club layout was, you know what I mean? So it was just a crazy thing because for that to happen, it was just, I don't know, man. It's just, it just seemed unreal. So, I mean, like I said, we went to Europe for 10 weeks. We came home right before Christmas of 2004. We took like a week or two off and they were like, yo, we need to go in the studio. And then we started out. Dallas had wrote a couple songs, and then he had this idea. He had this chorus for a song, and it was "To the Fallen Hero." And then I just took it and I created the track uh, vocally, as far as the subject matter, and it was an ode to Dime. But because a lot of people didn't really necessarily get to have an encounter with Dimebag, like I tried to broaden the spectrum so everyone could feel it. But like that that pain, like it's almost 20 years, man, and it's still like when I talk about it, it opens up like a wound.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still like a very powerful song and still another one of my favorite songs from you guys.
Thank you.
And I also
Yeah,
love
what's up?
yeah, you were saying.
No, I was gonna say like we try to write songs that people could relate to and that would stand the test of time, which is a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Kind of love how you kind of like broke it off into the three. There's like the Article 1, Twilight of Civilization, and 2 in the Darkest Hour. There was 1 and 3 Devolution. Is this almost kind of like a concept album in a way?
Oh, it was a total concept album. If you read the liner notes, it basically goes into the idea that the world creates its own destruction. Like it's basically how society is today. Like you build people up to only tear them down, and you never really learn from your mistakes. You just keep doing them over and over again.
And I'm pretty sure with like concept album, there's also a lot of like research that goes in hand as well as like making these concepts.
I mean, it it kind of progressed into a concept album naturally. It started out with the Dime song, and then we just started writing songs, and then Doc had an idea and he pulled it together with the story and then broke it down into the sections. And, voila, we have Constitution and Treason, you know.
Right. And then of course, because of course Constitution of Treason came out in 2005, and then the next album, Earthblood, came out in 2009. Did you decide to like really just take your time to write this album? And I was just curious, like the 4 year gap between the two.
No, we dude, like during that time, like life was happening. Like we were touring, um, and we were just touring, because at that time there was nothing else. Like we were all about the music, and we seemed to be keep getting opportunities. So we tried to make the best of those opportunities, and then we were gonna write. We were coming home to write, and then we just I don't know. We just we tried to we went to the well too many times, and we should have wrote an album sooner, but we didn't. So that's by the time it came out was what, like 2000, yeah, 2009. So yeah, I mean, it seems, damn, that is that's a long time. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we were just out doing working and touring, trying to live and survive as humans, and just time went on.
Right. And I remember the only time I ever got to see God Forbid was on this album cycle. You played the Mayhem Fest that summer. What was that like? Because you played with like Slayer, Killswitch Engage, Whitechapel, Trivium, and All That Remains and stuff. What was that whole tour like?
It was a good time, but it was a crazy time
Yeah.
because right before that tour, once we finished the album, we actually went on tour with Lamb of God and Children of Bodom and As They Lay Dying in the States when Lamb was like, I think, on the Sacrament album. And we got the offer for the tour, and then as soon as prior to that, we were in Europe with El Nino, and Dallas, I guess, got into an argument before we left for that tour, and he just quit the band. So at that point, it was a race to find someone to be second guitar. So we were fortunate enough to get Chris Norris. So he did that tour with us, that Lamb of God run. And then at the time, like he was kind of trying to get off the road because he was a dad. So he wanted to kind of stay home and be a dad. So, he helped us out with that tour. And then walks in Tricky, who Doc wanted to work with. So we invited Tricky into the fold. And, that's how Tricky got in the band. And we started working on the last album after Earth's Blood. But yeah, that was just another situation where we didn't really have an opportunity to really get out there and get the album out to people in a live setting,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and hard to believe it's been 10 years since the final album, Equilibrium, came out. What was that whole writing process like? And did you almost kind of like knew that this would be the last God Forbid album?
No, I mean, I didn't think that. Like, I kind of felt the album was incomplete because in the beginning, I kind of wanted to do a double album for that album. I wanted them to write another set of songs for the album, but we only ended up doing the one. But I figured, with Tricky coming in, because Tricky is a really good guitar player. He has amazing skills. And he's a great composer. So I was like, it just seemed like this was our chance to even go further than we had ever gone before because of his style of writing. So I was hoping that we would have done a double album so we could get more experimental and then do some, other stuff too. But, it didn't happen. So
Yeah.
we just finished the album. And a lot of people really didn't, I don't know if a lot of people heard the last album, but I mean, it was definitely some serious growth in that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, still a good album. But then, of course, you toured for a little bit, and then, of course, you all eventually broke up. And they're kind of like two questions in one, Byron. And what and sort of like during the 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 breakup, what were you kind of like doing in the meantime, up time, and then, of course, what eventually led to you all getting back together?
Well, in the meantime, I mean, the breakup occurred. Uh, Once again, we had some personal issues, and then people felt a certain way, so we parted. And at that point, I decided that I needed to do something else with myself. So I left. I picked up and moved from New Jersey and moved to Texas. I went back to school, got an HVAC degree, and then I just was working, raising my kid, getting married, having a family. And, that's what I've been doing the past 10 years. An opportunity presented itself to do a show. And I thought it would be cool. My kid had never seen me live. He's seen it on YouTube, but he was all upset because he never got to see the band. I was like, buddy, you weren't around when the band was, in full swing. So, for part of that, I did the Blue Ridge show, and certain people's calendars opened up so they were free, and people wanted to get back together. So that's what we did, and then we're here now,
Yeah,
about
yeah,
to do a couple more shows.
yeah, and of course, and you also got like Nick the Kepa, formerly of As I Lay Dying, playing guitar with y'all now. Now, how did you hook up with him to play?
Yeah, Nick is awesome.
How'd you hook up with him?
Uh, well, I mean, I knew in order for us to play, we needed another guitar player, and like I was like, yo, Nick Hippa, like just he just came into my mind just because like he's an awesome guitar player, and he's from that era, so I kind of figured like because he came up through the ranks with us as they lay dying, so it's just like if anyone would understand what we do musically, it would be Nick. So Doc asked him, and Nick was cool enough to be like, yeah, I'll do it, and it was like sweet, you know what I mean? So Nick breathed life back into the band.
Yeah, yeah, and of course with the sort of like the new God forbid bid live show. Joe, do you wanted to try to do something different live than to as opposed to before? Do you want to try to in terms of like production and everything?
Well, I mean, me personally, I think that since we're not under any kind of contract and we're basically free agents, we should do whatever the fuck we want to do. You know what I mean? Like, no need to be playing by a certain set of rules. It's our time to do what we want to do, and not feel hindered or made to feel like if you don't do this, then you won't get this, or you can't do that because they won't like this. And it's like, fuck them. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
once it's a weird feeling because it's like it's awesome to get a record deal, but at the end of the day, you still have to pay all that back. So it becomes a shoving match between you and whatever prospective label or whatever people that are trying to help you to tell you what you can and can't do. You know what I mean? So it's like to be in this position where you can call the shots, and for me personally, it doesn't really matter because like I have nothing vested in the music industry at all. So it's like for us to go out there and play what we want to play, like I think that's awesome.
all right. And being a
Especially when it
yeah,
being our own show, we have our own time, so we can fill it out the best we want to. So I think that's a great feeling.
all right. And being as it has been a decade since the last God forbid album, can we maybe expect some new music soon, or you're just gonna take it one step at a time?
I mean, we're gonna take it one step at a time. You know what I mean? I honestly, like, I hear all this hoopla about people being excited about God forbid being back, but the proof is in the pudding. You know what I'm saying? It's like you want it, you want it, you want it, and then it shows up and you don't support it. So it's like, how bad did you really want it? So I mean, a lot of what happens in the future is determined by things like that. You know what I mean? It's like there's no point in getting out there and being half-assed because
Right.
God forbid we never half-ass.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right.
Yeah. Put the
So
pedal to the
you know,
metal.
yeah, but there has to be a demand for it or an interest in it. It just can't be talk on the internet about, oh, we want this back, we want this back. And then like that's just one of the things that burn me about the industry. It's and a lot of it is older stuff that happened where it's like you go on these tours, you try and play for people, but people don't find out till the week after you came already.
Yeah.
So that kind of shit, like over time, it starts to get to you. You know what I mean? It's like I never want to be in a position again where I have to depend on fans to make sure that I can pay my bills. I hate to say it like that, but that's what it is. Like touring musicians really don't make no money, especially now in the atmosphere that we live in, where ticket prices are crazy, fuel is crazy, food is crazy. Just living in these times, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have, expendable cash. So if you're going to give somebody something, you got to really give them something that makes them want to come out their pocket and help support you, so to speak. So that's why it's important for me to never do anything half-assed, because I do appreciate when people come out to the show or just in general, seeing people who care about the band show up for the band. So that's where I'm at with it. And, I might get flack from people, but fuck it, man. I don't care,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
All right. And kind of wrapping things up, what's next for God forbid? I know you got two shows with Bleeding through to start off the new year. Is just any other tours that you're doing, or just like little one-offs here and there?
Well, we got these two shows, and then next Halloween we're on that the Lamb of God cruise. So it's gonna be Lamb of God, Macedon, Guar, uh, Fit for an Autopsy, Shadows Fall.
Oh,
We're going on a cruise, man, with the log.
hell yeah.
So we're gonna be in the Bahamas for Halloween, which is gonna be awesome.
I mean, what a better way to celebrate Halloween, right?
Yeah, dude. You know what I mean? Especially with the Lima dudes, man. Those dudes, like every time they come to town, I go check them out, and they're awesome. They're still the same dudes that I knew from way back then.
Yeah.
And which is awesome because a lot of people over time they get these big heads and act like their shit don't stink, whatever. But these dudes are still, to me anyway, they're like awesome dudes. They've always been the same dudes I knew from way back then. So it's
Yeah.
cool to be out there on the boat with them in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, rocking out. So I'm looking forward to that. It's
Yeah.
gonna be a good time.
I hope we can get a God forbid show in Atlanta because I haven't seen you all in like 13 years and I'm way overdue for a new show.
Well, the problem is, man, like I said, man, it's just that demand. I mean, it's not like God forbid is not one of those bands that is in the system as far as like we've lost our machine. We don't have a machine helping us push along, you know what I mean? So everything, it's like you got like a classic car sitting in your barn underneath a tarp for a decade. You know what I mean? It's not going to start right up as soon as you put the key in the ignition. You know what I mean? Everything's got to be prepped. You got to make sure there's no dry rot in the tires. The carburetor is, lubed and correct. The oil, is pumping properly. There's no little uh, hamsters up in the air filter housing. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
that type of situation where you're trying to restart the machine. So, depending on how things roll, well, depending on the future of God forbid, as well as the other dudes who have other projects, their schedules. So everything needs to be playing out. Like I'm back, I'm in a world of normalcy where, I have a 9 to 5 and I'm very happy with my 9 to 5. You know what I mean? It's very gratifying to me what I do, and I have my family here. So, it's really got to be worth it for me to leave the house and to leave my family. And the thing about that is my family is real cool with the idea of me going out and touring. You know what I mean? But like at the end of the day, it's my decision, and I'm not going to put myself in jeopardy and worry about my personal well-being if things aren't right. So I got to take
Right.
care of myself and them first. That's priority one for me. The music is somewhere else in the line of priorities.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, I still love what I do, and did. But, I'm a grown man. If it don't pay the bills, it don't make sense.
Right, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is completely understandable. Well, no arguments there. And kind of like to wrap things up. Is there any final words you want to say to close this out?
I just want to thank everyone that's, been screaming for God forbid, been championing us, near and far, keeping us in the conversation all this time, even though we've been gone for 10 years. But, it's well appreciated. And we do love you guys. And we do know that this wouldn't be possible without your efforts to help us. So we're very happy about that. It's like our gratitude, or our way of showing appreciation, is to get out there and give you the best show that you've never seen before, as well as introduce you to the band if you never heard of us before, and understand why people are always talking about God forbid this, God forbid that. There's a lot of bands that were there with us that aren't there anymore, and they have come back. And I just think it's that's that cycle where things come back again. New metal seems to be trying to make its way back, and there's a love of nostalgia out there, which is awesome. But at the same time, reality is reality. That nostalgia might make you feel good for a little bit, but it's still business as usual. You got to take care of you and the ones you care about. So we care about you guys. You guys are the extended God forbid family. You'll always be that for us. And, we're going to do what we can to make it awesome for you and help give you those memories, or rekindle those good times you had back when we first came out. Hopefully, like I said, we can make it to these places, but, only time will tell, because like I said, the world is crazy. But, don't think that we don't want to do it. It just needs to make sense.
Totally. It's just thank you again for this conversation, Byron. It's great to talk to you. So
Well,
everybody,
thanks for having me, man.
so yeah, everybody, Byron Davis from God Forbid. We'll see you next time.
Uh,